You're listening to the Dad Space Connect with podcast, made possible with the help of Connected Perinatal Support. The show that will take a deep dive into the trials and tribulations of what it's like to be a dad and bring some of those difficult conversations to the forefront. I'm your host, Shaun Barker, and these are my co-hosts, Luke Wilkinson and Lucas Carter. In today's episode, we'll be discussing being a dad for the very first time. I suppose before we delve into it, it's important for the listeners to get to know, I suppose, who we are, our background, why we're here, and maybe one hot take. So I'll stick this to you first, Lucas, because I know Luke is desperate to start talking. So Lucas, give us a little insight about yourself, buddy.
Yeah, so I'm Lucas. I've been involved with the Trust for about 7 years. Started off an admin apprentice, did a uni course with the Trust, and then I now do mental health programs through Team Talk, which I benefited through personally, and then wanted to take it forward myself. So that's what I strive to do, and that's what I'm doing now. And then it's led me to hear what I'm doing at the minute. And that's me. In a very short sentence. Okay, you can do a bit longer if you want.
You've got to fill in for the rest of that.
I was going to say, fill in for the next 20 minutes. I can do that. We all know I can do that.
Fine.
So I'm Wilco. I hate being called Luke for some reason. I hate it.
That's why I got Wilco in the script.
Yeah, Wilco in the script.
Okay,
I hate Lucas. I've done something wrong. Sam's fell out with me at home.
Okay.
I get a Luke, but Wilco's fine. Work for the Trust. I'm going into my 17th year full time. Nearly 20 years with at the football club. So I've seen everything you can ever imagine. Been schools coach, and now I'm a team leader within the health department. And one of my remits is having Lucas in my team and working on men's mental health, which it means a lot to me, which you'll find out in this podcast going forward with the struggles I've had, and also my dad as well, which he won't mind me sharing. So I'm really looking forward to sharing my story, just to show blokes out there it's okay. Like literally, I know it's dead easy to say it's okay, but it generally is. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I can't wait to rip Lucas, because he's a bit of a fanboy of you, Shaun. So yeah, he's been an absolute nervous wreck, so I can't wait.
He's been here for 3 hours before I'm talking to me, so I've got an idea of that. But it's good to meet you both. Obviously, I know you, Wilco. Yeah. Good to see you, Lucas. Myself, Shaun, Barks, however you want to call me, I'm not that fussy.
Can I say that now? I can call you Barks.
You can call me
now
Barks.
I'm on that
He
level.
was so nervous.
Mate, honestly. When I wrote the script originally, I put Barks. I was like, nah, too forward. I need to change it to SB just so you don't think I'm too like,
Barks is cool, man.
That's
Barks is cool.
Dan Barks, that's it.
So a little bit of a background for me, and it's really important. I probably touch on my upbringing with my mum and dad and brothers and sisters. So when I was 2, I had an older brother, older sister, and my mum and dad, I say that kind of tentatively, my mum decided she wanted to foster. So from the age of 2 to probably 25, we had maybe 100 plus kids in our family. They decided to foster and adopt, and we've had so many different types of situation with kids, and grown up with, I said to Lucas earlier, probably 10 kids on separate Christmases. So I kind of grew up around a really strong family, quite unique circumstances, and one that I'm very proud of. At the age of 16, I had to leave to get a scholarship at Rotherham United, and that was probably the hardest time for me, mainly because I didn't want to be a footballer at all. And of course, that's where it leads me to have a career in the game. I was a professional footballer, and I felt very privileged to have 20 years in the game as a professional. Retired in 2016, I think it was, and went straight into academy coaching with Burton. 16 to 18 year olds, so just before they get into pro. So my journey's been very much kind of kid based, and being around big families and wanting to support younger children. So it came as no surprise that I was very much looking forward to being a dad. I also do RamsTV, if you've seen, which I love. The guys are great, and it gives a different perspective of watching the game. I've got my own charity foundation. My own t-shirt company, and apart from that, I try my very best to relax, which happens very little.
I don't know about you, Lucas, but my head's spinning.
I've really undersold myself here.
I've got a business.
Well, I'll be honest, I get to the stage where I just want to do something else.
Yeah.
Always wanted to be a dad, and I've got 3 wonderful girls, 15, 9 and 5. Within that, I get a little impatient and want to do something else. And one of the reasons I'm here today is because at the start of the year, I said, well, I'm doing the RamsTV stuff, but I want to delve into a different side and trying to get to maybe come out of my comfort zone at times. So, yeah, it's been a wonderful journey for me. And I suppose the topic today we're talking about becoming a dad, which is a huge part of my life and a wonderful part of my life as well. So that's the three of us. Hot tip or top topic. What did you put?
Hot take.
Yeah.
Hot take.
See, I didn't get, like, it doesn't take a lot to confuse me. So he said to me, have you done your hot take? I was like, nah, I'll just ad-lib. Like, so you two can go first, and then if your two's is good, I'll just make something up.
Well, you seemed a bit lost in it, didn't you? So I'll lead with it.
Okay.
And then I'll let you two discuss my hot take. And then if you got something that comes up, you can go with it, can't you?
Okay.
So, example of a hot take is saying, I don't rate Lord of the Rings. They're just walking for 8-9 hours, however long it is. Just catch a massive eagle on it. They could have been done in like an hour. Stupid film. Absolutely pointless. Don't hate me. But
so
no,
So that's a hot take. You
that's
don't
an
like
example
Lord
of a hot
the Rings?
take. I mean, I don't. It wasn't what I'm going to lead with, but it's an example.
That's an example.
Yeah.
Right, okay. This
You
could
don't
be
have to swing for him
this
now,
could be a lot of editing. This
Yeah,
this
good
could be
point.
really fun. Yeah. Go on. Go on.
But no, so my hot take is that Crocs are the most versatile and fashionable piece of footwear that you can have in your wardrobe. And everyone should have a pair.
I'll leave this one for you.
So I know I've got very split opinions in the office.
You do, and I know you've got them on today, especially for Barks.
I need to relax. So the Crocs are on. They're in relaxed mode. They're not in four-wheel drive or anything.
That's interesting you said about the Crocs then. So my hot take is, I'll be about me. Hair systems are fashionable now. It's not just a wig.
Right.
They are. So you're looking at me thinking, what's he on about? This is a wig.
Okay.
Good, isn't it? Yeah.
It's good. Yeah.
It's good.
Am I allowed to look? Or I'm making sure I get eye contact.
Yeah. So my hot take is there shouldn't be a taboo subject about hair transplants, hair systems, wigs, what you want to call them. So yeah, if you need it and you're listening, get one done.
Okay, there you go.
I feel bad for calling it a wig now.
Huh?
I feel bad for calling it a wig now.
The hair system's just a cool thing, isn't it? It's like it's just trying to make it is cool, but it's just
That's cool.
it is a wig. A hair system. It is a wig. It is generally a wig, but a hair system sounds more cool, doesn't it? So you're going to go, I'm off to get my system done, rather than I'm off to go get my wig.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
No, I like this.
You're not going to look at me the same again. Now you're like, I'm not looking at your hair, I promise. I'm not looking at your hair. It looks amazing.
Make eye contact.
You can if you want, it's fine. But I'm just not going to whip it off.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
Yeah, that's fair enough. My hot take, I thought I kind of mentioned one with not wanting to be a footballer, which normally surprises people. So I'll probably stick with that.
That really upset when I saw your documentary.
Yeah, I think
what do you
people just
mean?
presume that it's this kind of this life that everyone wants to have, and I had no desire whatsoever. And probably going back to the bit about my upbringing, when I was, I think you're 14, aren't you? When you go and you have work experience. So all my mates were going to Paul Smith at the time to get a little taste of fashion and being in a warehouse and knowing that they'd probably get a job afterwards. I got requested, I think, to go to do a few things, and I wanted to go with my mum to playgroup to read kind of stories and stuff like that. So kind of when I got to 16, I had no desire to be a footballer. Tried my best not to. I did everything. So I sometimes didn't turn up on a Sunday because I wanted to play with my mates. I got offered a scholarship, and I remember having a conversation with my mum and dad. And probably my upbringing is two very different people. My mum, obviously, obsessed with kids, loved having kids. She was our carer for Cubs. She was the head of the youth club, which she did some wonderfully embarrassing things for us. Once, you remember Madonna had the kind of cone? Yeah, she did that, which was lovely for me at youth club. And all my mates are looking at me and going, yes, I know. It definitely made me stronger. There's no doubt about it. But I had a conversation with my mum and dad, and my mum said, don't worry, Duck. Like, you could be a bit of a man if you want. You just do what you want, Duck. Yeah. And that's great to hear. My dad was kind of a little bit more calculated, and we just said, look, I know you don't want to do it, but it's a great opportunity, and it'll be one that you might regret later on in life. And I probably didn't realise how important my dad was in my kind of upbringing, because he didn't say much. And when he did say it, you tended to listen. Yeah. And I remembered kind of having a few more years in the game, and I got a pro and ended up playing my first game, and realising how important that little bit of advice was. Not to say I think you should do it and you know it's the best chance you'll ever have. It was just this is what I think. My mum did not care. She didn't, as long as I was happy. That's all she cared about. So my hot take was that I never wanted to play football.
Just going on mums there, and again, people who've got female figures in their life. That mums just kind of go, yeah, don't worry, Shaun, you be whatever you want to be. But the dad's sometimes like, no, you've got one goal and you stick with it. And it's such an interesting contrast. Yeah. But I know, again, people might listen and go, that's not our household. We're very open-minded because it's 2023. But going back to the 80s, early 90s, it was either you're on the railway.
Yeah.
Do
You had very
mean?
separate roles and responsibilities
Yeah.
as parents. And I think at times, when you've seen your mum dressed as Madonna in front of all your mates, there's definitely an element of
next time she comes to an event, I'm going to be like, I'm looking up there, I'm not looking down.
Don't mention anything to her, because she'll still have the outfit. There's no doubt
She'll
about
bring it next time.
Yeah, but there's definitely an element that when my dad spoke, it was important you listened. He wasn't particularly a big physical guy. He was quite a small guy that was reserved and, went to work every day. He was a provider. Definitely got stressed. The more I look back at my childhood, the kind of frustration that he had, and I think it was clear that he probably wasn't that kind of dedicated, or maybe it wasn't his life dream to become a foster carer and a foster dad, but he did it nonetheless because that's what my mum wanted to do. And you appreciate how much he put into kind of our lives and his lives and sacrifices he made. But you forget some of the things. So he took me to every single game of football that I played. Every single game. Picked up all the lads that were maybe from difficult areas because they couldn't get a lift, without question. Yeah. And some of your traits from your parents, like both your mum and your dad, or carers, whoever you're living with when you're growing up, you take little traits of theirs. And I've noticed as I've got older that some of the traits probably more apparent are from my dad. Yeah. Being able to talk and clown around, that's definitely my mum. Yeah. Or Madonna, isn't it?
I was going to say, you can't say mum now, it's Madonna. No. It's Madonna now. For the rest of these, it's Madonna.
Yeah, I open up a meeting, I'm going to call her Madonna next time. The first time I ever see her, I'm going to call her Madonna, and she's going to hate me from the start. So.
Yeah. Well, she does like to talk, so you might not get a chance of talking. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We'll get her on one. We'll get her on one podcast. Yeah. That'd be really good. That'd be really cool, that will. And she'll have to come fancy dress.
Oh, we could do a mum's episode or something, can't we?
That'd be cool. Yeah, that would be really cool.
My mum would love it.
She'll be petrified. So the biggest clown, biggest kind of talker, but you get her maybe in on a stage or in front of a microphone, she'll be petrified. So yeah, it'd be interesting. It might be my chance to get one back on her.
I can't wait. Yeah. That should be fun.
Set it up.
There's 3 interesting different hot takes, wasn't it? You've gone feet, I've gone hair, and you've gone family. Interesting. This is going to be cool. This next 3 episodes, it's going to be cool.
We're going to dive into some stuff, I think.
We are going to dive into some stuff. But I just want to say, like the foster, going right back to the start about the foster caring, did you at any point as a kid think, where do I fit in? Or did you just have to embrace it and it was just the norm?
Well, I was 2 when they decided they needed more kids. My brother, I think, was 7 at the time. My oldest sister was 4 and I was 2. So there's a lot to take on as a parent for both my mum and dad. Now, whatever came through their heads, that at that stage when you've got someone running around at 2, you've got a girl running around at 4 and obviously someone at 7, that you need to offer your time, support and love to more kids is beyond me. I've got three girls, and it's hard enough being a dad with 3 girls, let alone bringing in more into the family. But it was always normal for me. So always normal to be around kids. And I remembered from a very early age that I wanted to look after them and I wanted them to be part of my family. And the most difficult part of it was seeing kids go. Because you knew that they probably had the best life with us, but obviously you can't take 100 kids. We started off with a 4-bedroom house. We ended up getting an 8-bedroom house. That wasn't big enough.
Wow.
And it was... But for me, everything was kind of part of my upbringing and part of what I knew. And if you know what you know, that it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I didn't have to change. You had to share your rooms. You had Christmas was equal for all, whether it be us 3 or the foster kids. And in fact, we've got still long-term foster kids in our family that have changed their name. We gave them the chance to change the name. And well, actually they came to mum and dad when they were 18 and said, I want to be a Barker.
Wow.
Adopted brother. And we still have regular contact with the kids that we've had over the years. So I never found it hard. It was just normal, just natural for me to be around kids and to want kids at a young age. Wow. I'll give you another hot take, actually.
Go on.
So I've been with my wife since I was 16. So we're talking 25 years now. So we've just been together 25 years. And at 16, I remembered having a conversation with my best mate and said, I can't wait to have kids. He's like, are you mad? Like, your life hasn't even started. I was like, yeah, but I'm ready. Like, I know in the next couple of years I want them. So that was kind of, even at 16, I was kind of ready. I wasn't ready for leaving home, but I was kind of ready to to have kids myself,
Yeah,
which is
wow.
a mental age to consider wanting.
That
them.
is 16. That
And I had to wait 10 years.
Yeah,
So I was 26 in the end.
So when you were 16,
Yeah.
were you thinking about kids?
Well,
He was
like,
thinking about
naturally,
me
I
at
think
16, wasn't
I
he?
was
Was he still at
actually.
that
I'm going to
age?
say,
I think-
if someone's just
I think
coming
you're still
now and
lingering
didn't
at this
realise
point,
what we
weren't you?
said, that
I think it's
Lucas
on
thinks
the-
about Shaun Barker, that'd be...
Yeah.
But listen, who wouldn't, Shaun?
So,
You're a good-looking man.
Oh,
thank you,
Don't
sir,
worry,
yeah.
anytime.
it's not like it was the role model. It was a centre half. I was playing centre back at the time. I don't know why. So I was probably about 5'2" and chubby, but I was playing centre half, and you was just like, I was it. Locks needed the headband, needed to be full. Like,
Yeah, forget that. You had a headband,
Yeah.
didn't you?
It was the hair
I think
system.
it is there.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Next time I have it done, I'll go leave it because I want a Barker.
I want a
What do you
Barker.
mean? I go, I want this.
Yeah, well, there's some rascal haircuts I've had over the
Yeah.
years as well. So you have
You're
to be
blonde
quite
at Rotherham.
specific. Yeah.
You're blonde at Rotherham.
No,
At Blackpool.
Yeah.
I did blonde for that.
Yeah.
I did blonde highlights for that.
Did you?
Yeah,
Did you?
legit.
Deuce.
I've got photos and everything like blonde highlights, purple highlights, pink highlights. Very interesting. Mum and
Wow.
dad give me very much free reign just to go on, do what you want with your hair while you're in the summer period, and then back to school, it was back to normal.
I kind of feel that's a better hot take than Crocs.
Yeah,
Fair
that
point.
you
I mean, I'm very
just-
passionate about Crocs. I don't know how you feel about it,
You
but I
are.
feel very good
Yeah,
about
you
Crocs.
are very passionate about your Crocs.
But no, let's
Wow.
touch
Wow,
on
so
your...
you copied his head? Like,
Yeah. Honestly, role model.
He
I'm
looks-
melted. You know, when you came back on for, you signed for Burton and you made your
Yeah.
appearance for Burton, I was there for that. I loved it, honestly. I was in the standing end for the Derby fans. It was like amazing. It's like one of the best experiences ever. Because there's all these Derby fans and Burton fans going, we love, and it was amazing. And because I'd already seen your documentary and the testimony and stuff like that, and like I was very invested in you. Loved it. It's like one of my favourite moments as a Derby fan, even though you was playing for Burton.
Yeah.
It was one of my favourite moments. I loved it.
do we need to get an injunction out, or is this?
I think so, yeah. It's more of me just pouring my heart out to you. So, honestly,
I'm
should
just
see
sitting here.
it.
Do you want me to go? I can go and come back if you want.
if you like. That's fine.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll let you
Well,
stay.
We best get back on track
I
in
know,
a minute.
yeah, we're going to.
But I did have a point anyway. So it's really interesting your childhood compared to mine. It's like the contrast is day and night. Like I was an only child, no foster kids, nothing like that. I was not smothered, but my mum was a stress head, so there was always caution. When my dad's a bit more laid back, let him do what he wants to do. And like you talk about leaving school, and my parents said, "Oh, do what you feel's right." And it's year 9, you almost given the free reign to make a decision what you want to do for the rest of your life. Mine was the worst ever. I started to be a primary school teacher. Don't ask me why. I thought, oh yeah, I don't mind kids, and I'm all right at most things. I'm relatively smart at most things. I'm not like, I don't excel, but I'm relatively good at everything. And then I did work experience. I'm too keen, but I was like, well, I've committed now. I've done my GCSE, so I'm going to have to. Stuck with it. Went to college for a year. Absolutely bombed it. Went, nah, I'm going to have to bin this off and find something else to do. Because I realised I don't really like kids. So this is the irony about this whole podcast, and you already know this. I don't want kids. Don't have kids. Close I'm going to have kids is dogs. So that's my fun little contrast. This podcast is that I come from a point of view where I'm more about the bloke as an individual, whereas you guys broke more as a dad perspective and like the merge between being a dad and yourself, and that's my angle. But it's totally ironic I've landed myself in this situation doing a podcast with you and Barks, and so I've even dropped Barks in there. I'm comfortable now.
Now it's allowed to say that.
I'm allowed to say it.
Now it's had permission.
I had the permission. That I've landed in a situation where I'm able to talk about it, but I think because I come from that perspective where I see it from the outside, it gives me a very different angle on things. And I think that's what the dads at the group appreciate, is that I give a different angle and that I'm very invested in it as them as dads. I'm still want to be a dad. It's not for me.
Do you think that, how old are you now? Sorry.
25.
Do you think that'll ever change?
I doubt it. I think part of it is driven by me and my girlfriend not really wanting that. Since your situation, been together since 14. This episode will be out by now, so I'm going to drop it. I'm proposing tonight.
Wow.
Mad things.
I tell you
So-
what, make sure there is a delay on this.
Yeah.
'cause that would
I'm
be...
sure it goes all right. We've been together 11
Fingers
years, so if she says
touch
no at
wood.
this point, I'm knackered.
Should we do two edits? Congratulations.
Or
And
commiserations.
It's all right. Don't
Yeah,
worry
let's
about
do
it.
let's do an
We're
episode
there
where we
for
just
you.
don't talk about it. So I've lost train of thought now. But yeah, so for me, like we've said for the past 5 odd years, she's not one bit inclined to children. Like she just doesn't have any affirmation for it, whatever. She doesn't have a feeling for being a mum, and I'm not that fussed about being a dad. I'm more about the cool auntie uncle thing. She's got 2 sisters, so, and we are quite close where we would be a really tight-knit family. But for me, it's partially driven by that and the fact that I think my anxieties around it as well, of being able to be mentally there for the child 24/7. I just don't know if I can commit to that as a lifetime thing, because kids aren't just a thing you do off the whim and something you do because it suits the family model and it's what everyone else is doing around you. It's more of the, if you're going to do it, be invested, be in it. Like, so you knew from a young age that's what you wanted, whereas I've kind of discovered myself in the last 7-8 years where I've learned that just doesn't suit me and my lifestyle and the way I operate. But on a part-time basis, as the cool auntie uncle that can have sleepovers over the weekend and I can chuck them back and they're not my problem anymore.
Yeah, well, it's wonderfully powerful that you can kind of say that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong at all to not want to be a parent. I know my sister, obviously, she was brought up in the same family as us and she's not interested in having kids. Never has been.
Yeah.
She went into social work probably because of my mum and dad's kind of upbringing and because of how she wanted to help children, but had no desire of having her own children. She's dog obsessed. They're her babies.
That's it.
Very different to me. Same upbringing, same mum and dad. Were 18 months apart and two completely contrasting views on being a parent and wanting to have kids. And I think it's great that she is kind of open and honest, said from day one. And there was definitely moments where mum and dad, well, especially mum, was saying, "Are you going to think about having kids or not interested?" And it took a while, I think, probably for different generations to not appreciate that that's not the way the world is. Society has moved. We're okay to do what we want to do and live the lives that we want to live. And I'm sure we'll get onto it a little bit later, but it is so much easier when you haven't got kids because you just have to worry about yourself and maybe your partner. That's it.
I think you nailed it on that there about the old generations may not get it because that's what life was, you know. The husband did one job, the wife did one job, you had kids, come grandparents, and you've done your bit and you've got grandkids and stuff like that, and that was a life story. Whereas now things are so much more flexible as to what you want to do and what you want to be. You know, same goes for women. Obviously now they've got more time to put through careers and families start later, and by that point they might not decide that it's for them or they've got more time to work things out. So I feel like I'm quite lucky at the fact that because I don't want kids in the generation I'm in, that it isn't expected of you. Yeah, it's wanted, and trust me, my mum gives me a load of stick for it because I'm only a child, so she's lost all hope of grandkids, but she's got granddogs instead, so lucky her. But we're in a generation now where it's accepted, and I was lucky enough to have parents that are very, do what you want to do, be what you want to be, just know you got to work hard for it. So that was always the way things went for me as a kid, that my parents brought me up to be what you want to be, do what you want to do.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, I suppose, position now to take a little break and come back to the topic about being a dad. Yeah. You obviously know nothing about it.
Yeah.
No,
we know quite a bit about it.
I've talked about it,
No
but
pressure.
Yeah,
No
so
pressure
we'll
on
come
us.
back to the topic in a second.
Yeah,
wonderful.
great.
At Connected Perinatal Support, we recognise that every family's pregnancy, birth and early parenthood experience looks different. There is no one size fits all. This is why we offer a range of free peer support services to suit all families, including the Dad Space sessions. Alongside the Family Hubs offer in Derby, we are working with families to develop an offer of support for dads and partners during pregnancy, birth and the early days of parenthood. We'd love to hear from you around this. To learn more about Connected, please visit our website or follow us on our social media.
Right, so I suppose let's get started in this part because this is what I'm leading on. So I'm going to give you a topic. This is how it's going to work in future. So I'm going to give you a topic what we're going to talk about. I've got loads of stats and figures that you can talk about. I'm going to feed you one. Might chip in my own opinion, but I'm going to let you two delve into it. And I'm just going to keep chipping every so often and feed you another one if we need to. So
Cool.
Let's get into it. So
Go.
First one we've got is want to talk about a little bit of the comparison of the life of a footballer being a dad, what it's like, and more specifically during your injury, which was obviously very debilitating, that you couldn't really do a lot. So want to dive into that and the mental health struggles tagged along with that, and then also the day-to-day, everyday dad. As you say, you know, there's no day-to-day dad, but as they go, the people that aren't footballers that work on the ground level, the failed. Okay, I don't know you got started, but yeah, start to fail. Sorry.
Yeah, go on. Yes, it's fine.
And then
it's fine.
talk about the comparisons between two. So I think it's interesting to talk about one, the differences, but I think two, more the key similarities, and there are more there that you realise. So yeah, I think it's,
Shall I
start
go
with you.
first?
Yeah, I'll start with you.
Okay, so being a footballer is you're extremely privileged. It's a wonderful job. As much as I maybe didn't want to pursue it in the first place, you are gifted with an opportunity to be around your kids quite a lot. When you're at football, on a Monday morning, you're in, I don't know, you've got a report for 9:30. You're often done for 2:30, 3:00. You do your training. You obviously match prep, whatever it may be, if you've got a game Tuesday. But you're in for a short period of time and then you're home. And the amount of time that you get to spend with your kids is wonderful. It's no surprise that there's lots of quite young footballers that decide to have kids because they do have time on their hands and they're in a fortunate position to make good money and to be maybe more financially secure at a younger age. For me, I was 26 when we had our first kid. And I suppose part of my journey, and it's important to talk about, is my wife suffers with anxiety and depression and had pre and postnatal depression. So having Eleanor for the first time was actually difficult in a different way. So again, I'm primed to be a dad, and I find it very easy. So most kind of people would say how difficult it can be, and the anxieties and the stress they worry about, the sleep deprivation, all those things, that the pressure of doing the right thing, making right decisions. I found that really, really easy, which makes some people want to punch me in the face. But I had to maybe kind of balance that with my wife, who really struggled with it and struggled with becoming a mum. There were so many things that probably were taken away from our experience, not just mine and my wife's having our first child, where she couldn't get out of bed some days and wouldn't open the curtains, or would stay in bed for hours and hours. And it should have been a really kind of loving, joyous, but testing time. But actually it was quite difficult to, football it's not priority, but you're in the game for a short amount of time. You have to perform week in, week out. You've got the stress and the kind of expectation of performing. But every time I went to work, I was thinking, okay, I'm leaving my wife, who's not great. I'm leaving my kind of newborn child, which is difficult. And you kind of don't know what you're coming back to. So I was, that kind of first period of having kids, being a footballer, was very difficult because of circumstances, because of our situation. In general, it's a wonderful kind of job to have, because you do have time at home, you do have time to spend with your kids. The injury one for me was difficult because I was pretty much bedbound for 6 months. All the things that kids want to do as they grow older, I couldn't do. I couldn't play it was my second child, Blanche, when I had my injury. I couldn't play and I couldn't do things with her because of my knee and because of the situation I was in with obviously the injury in 2012. So lots of, I would say, of wonderful moments were taken away, but I'm blessed to have had so many brilliant moments with all three of my kids, and feel very fortunate that we're in a position to not only have our first and because we didn't think we would be able to catch, but to have the second and have the third. And with the three kids I've got, the first one obviously was a little bit of a surprise and obviously very difficult in certain ways. She's an absolute princess, the best kid you can imagine. I didn't find out until, I'd say, maybe a couple of years, a couple of years after having Blanche, that my wife told me that she'd had it for me. She had the kids so that I can kind of enjoy kind of having a child in a different way in a difficult time for me.
Wow.
And then our last Genie was kind of like a together, we finally got a perfect time and a place to have a kid. All three were wonderful. All three were very different, but all three we've been kind of very fortunate to experience, but in different ways. And I think every father, every mother, every parent have difficulties, and how you deal with that and how you work through that, and how the kind of beauty you see in all those difficult times as well are kind of overwhelming at times. So in general, football's brilliant. I've obviously had difficult times, but none that I would particularly change, because it's our life, it's our story. The kind of difference between each kid's been beautiful. The situation we've been in has been very different. I don't think my wife ever forgave me for signing for Derby, if I'm being honest, because we had this. She just kind of got over that first, I'd say, 6 months of postnatal depression, and we moved to Blackpool. We were living in Manchester at the time, and we moved to Blackpool, and was in a place called St Anne's that's right next to the beach, which offers her kind of a tranquility that a mind can just drift off. And we had maybe 3 months there, and then obviously I was signing for Derby, and I think they're the little details. So I had to choose to come to Derby. It was an opportunity and a financial opportunity and a chance to play for a huge club in the same division of Blackpool. But for her, that was very testing, and she struggles to make that transition. You ever speak to her, she was, I've never forgiven Shaun for it. She knew
I love you for it. So.
Well, she knew it was the right decision. She, like, objectively, she knew it was the right decision, and we had to do it. But at that point in time, she just kind of found her feet, I suppose, in this difficult time of being a parent. So, yeah, it's been testing, but I do feel the things that are the most rewarding are the times where you've had to get through difficult patches and you've had to get through obstacles and hurdles and really deep, dark times, and then you see the light in a different way. You see the joy and the kind of the beauty in a very different light. And I think with the 3 kids, we've had a nice steady progression where now we're just a wonderful family that have experienced so much. So I've probably gone off track a little bit there, but the being a footballer has time. You have the financial side of things. The stresses aren't necessarily on the kids. It's about probably providing, making the most of that time that you're playing football, because you know it's short and you know you've got an opportunity to maybe set up your kids in future times. The difficulty I find now is if I'm working 50 hours a week, the amount of time I get with my kids is less, but then they're probably more precious and there's more thought and detail into them. And I'm very good at saying, no, I'm not doing that because I want to be at home. I'm great at it. I always have been, but it's still, I always said I wanted my weekends. When I retired, I want my weekends. Yeah. So that means that all day Saturday I'm working now. I go to the PDP, the 18s with Burton. Yeah. Obviously, that's my full-time job. I come to RamsTV afterwards, so I can leave at 6 a.m. and get back at 7 p.m, which is the difficult bit. So for me, the time that you've had when you play football, that's the beautiful thing, and that's the opportunity to make the most of what a wonderful career is, what a privilege you are to be in a position of playing football for a living. There's definitely things that you lack and miss, but in terms of a job, having kids, I think it's a wonderful mix, and it's no surprise again to see so many young players and maybe young lads maybe going for looking to have a kid quite early, because they want that kind of settled kind of life, because we know it's nomadic at times. You might sign for one club and the manager doesn't like you, in 6 months you've got to move again. So having a family base, a home, a wife and kids kind of gives that safety and kind of contentment that you're probably looking for at times in football.
So out of interest, what's the changing rooms like during those kind of periods of maybe being a first time dad or being a dad sort of thing? Like, do you talk about these kind of things, or is it just a lot of players treat it as work, so they turn up, they chat and go to work and go home? Yeah,
so being in a changing room for a footballer is a lot of banter, a lot of messing about, a lot of winding up, a lot of fun. I'll be honest, that kind of talking about being a new dad, talking about mental health, talking about difficulties you face doesn't really happen that much. Maybe away from the changing room. I think if you've got some close friends and some people you trust, that does happen. Yeah. But in terms of that environment, it's such a kind of, you have the changing rooms like a safe space to be a kid still. And we are kids. You know, when you're playing, you're still a kid. You're a baby. You haven't had to grow up. No. Especially if you're a big club like this. And over the years, I remember when I signed, I had to do everything at Blackpool myself. I had to divide probably 22 tickets for 18 lads by myself. I had to go to the chairman to get the tickets, to make sure I gave them out, to make sure there's enough seats on the bus, to sort out the bonuses after every game. And then you came to Derby and it's like, oh, what do you want was like, well, what do you mean?
You got Claire and Jeanette who just did everything.
Yeah, they were unbelievable, and I obviously made the most of it.
Yeah,
you got Rich,
but I couldn't believe how much is done for you. And you're just kids. You're just still kids playing football, and I think having to grow up isn't a necessity when you're playing. All that people care about in reality is performances, and I think when you look at Paul now, he's a manager that cares. So I don't know if you've been to the training ground, you've seen what he does, and you've seen the pictures of families, and you know the bonding that happens. There's more to the player and more to the team than just the player. When I started, it was very much you either performed or you didn't. You're either strong mentally or you're not. You know, the different generation, but it's starting to change now. And someone like Paul is very in tune with family, with kind of understanding the player, understanding that the well-beings and the mental health can be fragile, and he will support that and will be there for that. Yeah. And he's Paul as well is very openly vulnerable at times, openly vulnerable, and it shows a real strength in character and kind of yourself of self to kind of be like that. And the more we encourage that, I think in football, in changing rooms, I think the easier it will be for players.
Yeah. So I heard stuff about Nigel Clough. He's quite big on the personality coming to the change rooms. I wonder if he was quite a personable person in terms of getting to know you as an individual, because we all know his dad.
So Nigel knew you before you'd sign. Yeah. So he knew everything about me. He knew about my upbringing, knew about fostering. He knew about what I was like in the changing room. He knew
before talking to you.
Before talking to me, the detail that he went into, and he'll openly admit he would have got it wrong with a few players, and probably went against maybe what he valued to bring a player in that he knew was an exceptional footballer. But he knew so much about you, and when Nigel's remarkably intelligent, but you didn't talk, like I still don't talk to him that much. There's not that much detail, but the times where you need him, that's where he was there. So the second I got injured, he was like not a different man, because I always trusted him. I always knew he was a wonderfully loyal man. But once I got injured, he was a different beast. Anything that he could do for us, anything that gave me stability, anything that my wife needed, my kids needed, that's the moment that his kind of care and attention comes to fruition when you need him. The other times, kind of, it's a two-way thing. You know, I played through my second year here pretty much injured, and after that, he'd say, "Will you be fit for Saturday?" I'll go, "Yeah." And I couldn't move on Monday. I couldn't move on Monday. We'd be fit for Saturday. Yep. Okay, brilliant. He'd let me do whatever I want in the week. I play on a Saturday, and then that kind of he reciprocates that by going, "Anything you need, let us know." And there was I know what Barks has done to be out on the pitch for me, so I'm going to back that up with whatever he needs from me. And that's kind of the relationship that Nigel had with his players. And it's no surprise he took certain players, John Brayford's, Jake Buxton's, to different clubs because he valued the man that they were and the player they were, and the value of loyalty, honesty, and just being vulnerable at times as well. So yeah, he was wonderful for it. As soon as I got injured, he was the best manager that there could have been to support me through that.
Amazing. And just out of interest, I know that's loads to delve into, but did you see any similarities between what Shaun was saying about being a dad and a footballer, between what you was doing work life? Because Shaun's work life's footballer, but football has its own category, really, doesn't it? Like, it's not, the two aren't the same almost. So if you as a
listen, you kind of like the job, and Shaun was talking about the job. You kind of, so now with two kids, you get up, go to work, come back. You got to provide, so you don't really switch off. And a bit like you said about, I liked a bit about the footballer where you got time to switch off, but now we can actually have the ability to say no. Whereas back then, you're on a routine, and it was a little bit more harder. Where now we can say no, and that's something I've got to learn better at. I think I've got to always provide, where I've got the ability to say no. So I think the one thing I want to try and learn from my childhood is going, right, and this is no disrespect to my parents or my dad whatsoever, so if they're listening, I'm not slating them, but I want to make sure I make those decisions for the good of the family, rather than as an individual go, no, that's what I think is no. How does that fit with the family life? So similarities, but I think now Shaun's in the big wide world. He'll understand that there's no like, you've got to do things yourself. There's no people to do it. And if you don't do it, it's not going to get done. It's generally not going to get done. And if it doesn't get done, there's a knock-on effect. Whereas back when you're playing football, Shaun, Sean, that was very, sorry, Barks.
Right,
yeah, we'll edit that one. That you could just go, Claire, Jeanette, whoever at Burton, I need that doing, even though you're not that sort of person, but if it's on your doorstep, you're going to make the most of it. And we all know you're not that sort of person. Whereas now you go, right, if I've been told I've got to do this or go there, it's on me.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I struggle sometimes. If I don't get it right, I think, have I made the right decision? And I am that sort of person to dwell on it, and I've got to get better at that. But have I answered your question?
Yeah,
I've just gone off.
Well, I'm not sure if I answered it in the first place.
We're just diving into things, aren't we? But I think there's similarity to what you said from you saying about what's best for you and your family unit, and we've all moved to Derby, and your wife saying, now I see it, but back then didn't rate it. That's my way of just saying hated it, but the similarities are there. So family comes first, even as a footballer. So it's, even though you see it now, not everyone else is going to see what you're seeing. And sometimes you have to faith in your vision, don't you? But
do you know what? And again, I've worked for the place for years, and it's not slating the organisation, but I think sometimes you feel pressured that you've always got to be at work, or if actually it's okay, I'll ring Sam and I'll just say, I've got to do an extra half hour. And actually, I could say, no, I've got to go. But sometimes you feel pressured. And again, I think everyone listening to it, I think they'll feel the same thing, that you go, no, I've got to stay at work if I don't, because if I lose this job or whatever, then how am I going to provide? So you want to be there all the time, but then you feel the pressure of, actually, is my boss understanding? And ours is. I'm not slating anybody. She's very understanding. But at the same time, you don't want to be that person that, Wilco's not working again because he's got the kids, or he's using the kids, and it's such a difficult, because people who haven't got kids like yourself, Lucas, and you might go, he's not working late again because he's on the school run, or he's always doing this, and sometimes you don't have that negative effect in the office. And the people who haven't got kids, we're very lucky that we're embedded in what we do. But I can see in other organisations that dads would struggle because going, actually, I can't have time out because my mate can't have time. Do you see what I mean? It's such a difficult conversation.
I don't know if some of that is from kind of different generations of providing.
Yeah.
The man being more traditional to provide money and an income to support the family. And at certain stages you had to work harder to make more money to that was part of your job.
Yeah.
20, 30 years ago, that was part of your job. It was fully expected. And it's great that we're in a society that's always evolving, that's allowing the dad to have more time at home, to spend valuable time as the kids growing up with their kids. But I think we've started to wake up a little bit and say, well, actually, no, what's my priority? What's my value? I never think that anyone values your time as much as you value your own and value your kids.
Yeah.
So that's how you can kind of look at it. I've been very adamant when I finished, whatever it is, I need to be happy with myself that I'm providing the time and care and attention for my kids that I feel is valuable and enough. Obviously, we'd all like to be there 24/7 and every single moment. And how me and my wife, Beck, kind of balance that is, at the moment she's working pretty much full time at a school. I'm working at Burton. I get back. As soon as I'm back, she's normally got the dinner ready, but afterwards everything's mine. So I'll put the kids to bed every single night. I'll read to them every single night. I'll tuck them in. I'll get up in the morning with them and do the breakfast. So even though my days are longer and a little bit more, I wouldn't say stressful, but full on. And I was saying to you earlier, you were saying about you listening to watching EastEnders, which is ridiculous to me. I get in bed at 9 o'clock. And that's fine, because mine and my wife's time is 9 o'clock in bed watching Netflix, whatever we may be watching, or something on Amazon or a film. So that's the moment we switch off. But between, 7, half 6, 7 when I get back, we sit down at the table together, we eat dinner. I give them all a bath. Not my 15-year-old, she's old enough to do that herself now. But we have a bath, read, give them kisses, cuddles, tucked up. That time is enough, I think, for the kids on a 9 to 5, 9 to 6 kind of day. It's the weekends I find a little bit more difficult, but they're probably the most important part when you're playing football, when you're involved in football. So that's what makes it quite unique. Saturdays and weekends are massive when you're playing football, because that's normally match day and it's probably the day you're recovering. Now, when I started, there was no coming in on a Sunday to do warm downs. I think it's a ridiculous thing. Some managers will have it because it's about performance, it's about results, whereas others will go, no, you need time with the family. I can't remember Nigel ever bringing us on a Sunday.
Only if you lost.
Sorry?
Only if you lost and you play cricket.
Well, yeah, cricket, not football. It was very different. So when you thought, we got smashed 6-1 at Cardiff away, I go, see you Thursday, lads. That would have been his team talk afterwards. Because he realised that on a Sunday, if you came in still spewing about the 6-1 and him still infuriated by the 6-1 and the performance, or Monday, which you knew it probably would still be great in him that time and bothering the lads, he would give them more time off because you're almost not rewarded for performing poorly, but that's your time where your wife will pick you up. That's the time with your kids that maybe we would take away from you by being annoyed and kind of fuming with that performance. So he'd flip it. And the amount of times you come in on a Thursday and you felt like a different person because you'd had time, you've had space, you've had that kind of opportunity to just to reconnect with family. So like understanding those parts for me are huge. And that's because he's a family man.
Yeah.
And he cares about his family first and foremost. He's obsessed with football, which is why he's been in it for so many years. And he's very much, looking for results and wanting the best players and wanting, but his value at home is more dominant than his value at football. And I think in football, it's such a short period that you have to make the most of it and you have to do the best. So I felt a huge responsibility when I got injured to get myself fit to earn money to be able to provide for my kids. That was at the forefront of mine. Not having my little moment at Burton against Derby, as incredible as that was, and that was my pinnacle for my football career for me. The best part of my career was that moment. But it was all driven by, I need to get back from my kids. I need to get back from my wife to have another year or 2 or 3 or whatever I can get to earn some good money to say, this is what I can achieve.
Yeah.
So the football side of things was always, as strange as this may sound, Wilco, and everyone that knows me, it was money driven. Yeah. But not in a
flash.
Not the flash, the materialistic stuff. You're not to be named the highest earner, but to get the best, make the most of the opportunity. I was privileged enough to get paid good money in a short space of time so that later on in life, like now, I can still have that option if I want to be home. I still have that time with the kids. I'm still looking forward to going on holidays with the kids if I get a chance, blah, blah, blah. And there's so many different ways of looking at football, but that was predominantly my reasoning for playing football and my sole focus. And that's the beauty with football. It's such a short term, and if you do really well, you have an opportunity long term to spend more time with your kids and your family.
So I'm going to whack some stats out to you. And it's more about being a first time dad. I'm going to have to adjust it so I can speak to my market at the same time. So this is specifically about being a first time dad as well. So this is the stats and figures that come behind it. So in 2013-14, a study found that 30% of first time fathers are concerned about their mental health. Considering that this is in 2013-14, so not too far away from your injury and whatnot, but you think about this is almost 10 years ago, and that stat was 38% then, where mental health wasn't as much in the forefront as it is now. What's that stat now? Like, how many of those first-time dads that are first delving into that world of fatherhood and being a new person, because you do become a new person, I like to think. I think you have to step into a different role slightly. You adapt and take a lot of what you are, but I think you have to adapt into a different way to be a father, and you do that mentally, but you also do that biologically. So I'm just interested to know whether you had any concerns about being a dad for the first time, or was it, I know if you was pretty much geared for it, so you was ready, like you wanted to know, it wasn't expected, but you were ready for it, you knew what you wanted at some point, it just happened maybe sooner than you expected or not. But then for you as well.
Yeah, mine came, when I was the first time dad, came at a really interesting part of my life and the journey that I was on with me and Sam, and obviously a few things have gone on behind the scenes, and it was a time where when that happened, it made me reflect a lot more. And I think that was a massive part of my life when Zach, we were very lucky to have Zach, and he came in, and it was kind of, it made me just switch on a little bit going, I've got a purpose, because quite a while, I won't delve into it, but I didn't feel like I had a purpose anymore. But then when Zach came in, and it then just gave me that little bit of a kick up the backside that actually I can achieve something, and I can pass on my mistakes and turn them into positives for Zach growing up. And I think for me, sometimes first time dad can be really daunting and they don't feel they've got it. But for me, it was the total opposite. It kind of just, it felt like I was born again. That sounds, and I'm not religious and I'm not saying, it just felt like there was a new person coming to me, and it was difficult and there was lots of things still going on and I was still working on myself, but Zach kind of changed my whole outlook on life completely. So I'm forever grateful for Zach coming into the world. I'm forever grateful for Sam carrying Zach and being a mother. So I'll be eternally grateful.
So how quickly was that? Was it straight after birth, or was it a few months down the line? Was it
I'd say
when you found out that Sam was pregnant?
So when we found out, it was kind of, I always remember it was a massive shock. We were trying, but it was a massive shock, and I thought it would never happen because of what I did, and I thought I'd never be able to make things right. And it kind of, when Sam was pregnant, I thought, right, this is my time. It was the first Christmas. I remember sitting there and I just saw him playing as it did as a 6-month-old and everybody, and I was thinking, this is it. This is where I've got to change all my responsibilities. And it just gave me that new lease. And I can't describe, I was sitting there, probably not on Christmas Day, but that Christmas, and I sat back and watched and saw him play and everything. I just thought, this is what I needed. Is it fate? Probably. I don't know. Do I believe in that sort of stuff? Probably not. But in a weird way, it's an interesting way to describe it, but I feel I've now got a purpose, and being a dad was my purpose, where I thought I didn't have one. So first time dad for me was completely different. Maybe you wanted it. Did I want it? I needed it, but it just changed my whole outlook.
Yeah. It's great that it can be something as powerful as that. Maybe a little bit unexpected as well.
Yeah.
You know, for myself, it was kind of all I wanted to do. And actually, when Eleanor was born, so my first child, she kind of put us in a position where we had this wonderful little child that was all I'd ever wanted. And we knew that obviously my wife, Beck, was going to struggle to kind of deal with it. And I think some of those difficulties were that she could only at that point just about look after herself. So in terms of her suffering with anxiety and depression and stuff like that, and it being overwhelming for her, all of a sudden she felt a huge responsibility of being able to having to provide for someone else, having to think about someone for someone else for the first time in her life. Whereas I was kind of, set up to do that. And I think that's kind of, I don't believe in fate at all, but I think at an early age, I must have known that my wife probably needed support at times, and that's the kind of person I am. So it kind of fit our mold, which is why I think we've been together for so long. I think if you have different characters and different traits, sometimes it can clash and sometimes it can kind of mold. And we're very yin and yang. We cannot be any more opposite people. And it kind of, it's a bit crazy that you think we match and we work because we're so different. And when Eleanor came along, it was the kind of a wonderful kind of moment, but it felt very much like we've got to work together to make it work for us. And yeah, some really difficult times, but with it came that kind of first step of really being tested and knowing that as a couple and as a partnership and having this child that was more important than either of us, and we both knew. And my wife kind of probably found it hard that I thought of someone else before her for the first time. And she'll openly admit that's kind of part of, I would say, the hardest part of maybe being a parent was the first maybe 6 months. And if you think you're sleep deprivation, if you think of, she tried breastfeeding at the start, and after a month or so, we just knocked it on the head because she wasn't sleeping. It meant that I could sleep, which I felt very guilty about. I wanted to be up in the night. Obviously, I knew I had to take care of my wife and the kid and my daughter. So that added responsibility. But that was kind of something that I wanted. I love kind of being put into a really tough situation and seeing whether I could come out of it. I think part of my injury was, weirdly, I loved it. Yeah. I absolutely loved the journey because I knew it was going to be difficult and I wanted to be tested. And I think kind of fatherhood and being a husband at times is part of that. It's being able to enjoy those moments that are very difficult. As you probably have more kids, you appreciate kind of things that work and things that don't a little bit more. And I was so naive to think that we brought Eleanor up, and she's she's an angel. She is the best kid you can imagine. Polite, respectful, lovely to her sisters. Always, she's a teenager, but she hasn't even seen a teenage kind of strop or anything yet. She's just incredible. The perfect probably kid for me and Beck in that situation. She slept well from 2 weeks, pretty much straight through. Like everything that could have been right with a kid and a baby was spot on with her. And I kind of felt that just she was the reason that she came, and she was the I suppose the key in all of it for us to have
the catalyst almost.
The catalyst, yeah. To have to keep on having kids and to grow this family. If she wasn't the way she was as a baby, I think it would have been very difficult to try and convince my wife to have a second, because it was difficult enough as it was in the first place. So, yeah, it was a wonderfully difficult experience having Eleanor.
Wonderfully difficult.
Yeah,
I like it.
but one that again I wouldn't change. I think your life it throws things at you in different ways, and how you deal with those situations is the life that you kind of live. And my wife was incredibly strong to get through kind of some of the stuff she got through. Obviously, the second child was about something for me at that point, and obviously the third was about us, and it's been a slow progression to build this kind of wonderful family. But it all started with Eleanor, who is our angel.
Oh, amazing. Any thoughts on that?
I think, and obviously we've added now to the Wilco clan.
Yeah,
I do apologise to the world. We've added another Wilco
no,
into
you
the world.
scoffed when Mark said about sleeping after 2 weeks. So.
Yeah, which is interesting. But then obviously now with Casper, we're in a interesting situation. Obviously with there's now two in the house, so it's kind of when tonight they're out for tea, I'm buzzing, so we'll get to watch EastEnders, so I'll have a time to myself. But then last night, prime example, got in from work, tea, house, feed Caspers, that there, and next you know it's 10 to 10, and you're going, I'll see you in the morning. But you just have to, now it's just ingrained into what you do. And if you get a bit of time to watch telly or go out for a drink together or just chat, it's a bonus. Other than that, your kids are turning into your priority, don't they? It's kind of, you have to crack on. And that sounds like I'm going to contradict here, that you don't have to just crack on. You can just go, this is too much. And I can imagine in a month, 6 months, I will have a bit of burnout going, this is really tough. But then that's where the resilience comes in, and where I found myself. And I think I'm in a position where I can keep going.
Yeah.
But you'll see. So good luck near Christmas.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think, like you say there about you have to crack on, I think that's a wrong thing to say. Because I think there's a lot of the stuff I'm going to say is going to sound a bit contradicting, it's not dad, but from the stuff I say, it comes from what I see from the groups and a wealth of different experiences of dads and what they say. But the idea of having to crack on with it isn't unheard of. I think that's what's led us to the situation we're in now, where we need to talk a bit more about dad's mental health, because it's always been that mindset of, right, partner's pregnant, just need to crack on. I just need to get on with things. I've got no problems. It's all about her. It's all about baby. I need to protect my family. And biologically, you go through those changes. So, little fact for you. When your partner becomes pregnant and you're around your partner, your testosterone levels drop, which then leads you more into makes you more susceptible to mental health issues. But then also your estrogen, however you say it, levels go up, because your body's then biologically adapting and chemically adapting to be more nurturing towards your child, so you can be a better carer. That goes way back to like Stone Ages, softly, before it was all barbaric and crazy, and like men were hunters and whatever. But as times evolved, men have biologically evolved so that they chemically change to be a better carer for their child. So when men find out that they're having a child, or they've just had the child, that's when the mental health problems slip in, and that's when they think, oh, hang on, this has caught me off guard. I was just getting on with things, and like, all of a sudden I've got these mental health issues, but I shouldn't have issues because my partner just had a child. She's been through like one of the most traumatic things of her life, and I've got this new baby to take care of. So dads don't give themselves the time to reflect, like you said, and not necessarily appreciate what they've got, but understand what they're dealing with personally. And progress in a way that they can then be there for everyone, because that means taking an hour or 2 out each week to take care of yourself that keeps you there for the rest of the week and present and available. That's what you need to do. But yeah, I'm going to chuck another stat at you. So on the back of that is that around 10% of all new fathers worldwide experience postnatal depression. I don't think dads having postnatal depression is generally a recognised thing. So I think you talk about with your partner that she had postnatal depression, and I think it happens quite a lot in women, but it gets missed a lot in men, because usually when you turn up to these baby appointments, it's how's baby, how's mum. Dad isn't part of the equation, even though they're part of the family unit. So I think that's where, again, that slips in, because the question doesn't get asked, and that's what we're here to do, is bring light to it, so that dads want to talk about these things. There's a space for them to come and do that and say, well, yeah, I did have all these questions, but no one was there to answer, because fair enough, they're talking to my partner and the baby, but those answers still aren't, those questions are still unanswered. So I think it's interesting to see that dads do get postnatal depression. And I've also been told they can suffer from PTSD from the birth as well. So obviously for the wife or partner, it can be quite traumatic physically on them, but mentally for the partners to be there and stand and watch your partner in all this pain, or if it's a really long labour, that can take a massive toll on mental health as well. So a lot of these things and mental health issues that is commonly associated with the mum and other people around, it happens to the dad too. It is common, it is normal.
Yeah. It doesn't, it's not a surprise.
No, it's not. When you talk about it,
it's not a surprise at all. So I'm listening to you mentioning about the hormones and estrogen change and testosterone change. So that's the biological kind of side of things in terms of that. Then you think of not being able to sleep, probably anxiety and stress, the unknown. So if it's especially your firstborn, not quite knowing what you do. I remember when we brought Eleanor back, we had no real info how to deal with a baby, a newborn baby. No info. They give you a couple of leaflets and that's about it. It's only really probably because of my experience that we were a little bit more maybe prepared for it than most would be. And then if you think about the connection maybe with your wife and your partner, the connection with the baby, everyone talks about how's the mum, how's the baby. You get pretty much,
it's the first question.
You get isolated very much so. And I think that's just normal. It's just been the normal way that people talk, and it's important that you stay involved, especially in the first few months, to make sure that you're part of every single conversation. And if you do need time, and the word that you use that is perfect, is present. You want to be present for your partner and for your kids. You want to be fully engaged in how they are, and that can be difficult if you've got so many things going through your head and your mind and your body at that stage. It's no surprise that people struggle and find it difficult. The PTSD with the childbirth, I completely understand. I hated the whole process. It was horrible to see my wife in pain, and it was a long, drawn out birth. I probably wasn't. It was inevitable that I knew that she would struggle anyway, because she'd already had postnatal depression. So I was almost expecting it to be very difficult for the foreseeable future, and then to be in for 30 hours or whatever it was. Wow. People talk about it being a beautiful thing. I couldn't think of anything worse. It was horrendous, and there's nothing you can do. You're completely powerless.
That's your passenger to it all, isn't it? You just sat there from a window watching, maybe getting your hands squeezed, but
and we're talking 15 years ago. It was all about I remember before, everyone said, your wife will be fine when the baby comes, and you need skin on skin, and they were desperate for her to breastfeed. It's very forceful in what the mum and the child should be doing in terms of their connection. Actually, it was me that said, I'll do the skin on skin. My wife needs a moment. Give her a moment. I ended up falling out with the midwife because I knew what was kind of happening, because I know my wife and I know what we've been going through. But the midwife didn't have a clue. She was just doing what's always been the same, which mum, kid, do you want a cup of tea and a sandwich, love? That was pretty much it to me. Obviously, I took the tea and the sandwich. But that's how it is.
So much, I was talking to someone about it the other day. It happens so much where the wife don't want anything, but then the dad sat there starving, thirsty, but they're not interested because it's all about the wife and they can't have anything because they haven't got the budget for it. So the wife will say, oh, yeah, I want this, and then feed it to the husband.
Well,
so that's normal.
funny thing is that when Casper was born, the midwife come round and finished cesarean, come back and gave Sam toast, and the toast in hospital is unbelievable, by the way. It's the best thing ever. You can't replicate it anywhere. And I remember she goes, oh, does Dad want some? And Sam's like, no, he doesn't. I went, whoa, I do, I'm hungry. And sometimes at that time, if it'd been Zach, I'm like, oh no, I'm okay, and I'll get some later on. But this time I was quite adamant, going, no, I'm hungry too. Like, I know you've been through it, and as Sam would say, she's been through quite a intense operation with a cesarean, but sometimes it's all right to say, no, I'm hungry too. Yeah. And I fell out not fell out, but I was a little bit annoyed at one of the appointments because with Casper, I took Casper. Like, oh, where's Mum? How is she? She's right. She's absolutely fine. She's just resting, like you were saying. And I'm here to bring Casper out. I can do the exact same thing. I know I'm not Mum, but I'm Dad, so it's okay. And I think that's where times are evolving a little bit more, and you will accept that Dad can do most of the appointments.
Yeah. Well, one of the things as well with my wife giving birth to Eleanor, a mate of mine came kind of halfway through, knew it was obviously a long ordeal, and drove to the hospital to have half an hour with us. So in terms of like being open to kind of how difficult it is for the dads, like he knew it was a tough process. He knew that it was going to be a long drawn out labour. And he also knew that I probably needed a little coffee and a little support myself. So as tough as it was for my wife, a mate was still thinking about my kind of journey in this and how difficult it would be for me, because he knew I'd find it very difficult for my wife to be in pain and be powerless and not being able to help. We're fixers, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're predominantly fixers. We want to fix things. We want to make things better. And when your wife's in labour and you can't do it, you've got your TENS machine and you're holding a hand. That's as much as you can do.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
and it's a horrible feeling. It's one of the only feelings I've had in my life where I felt completely powerless to help the person that I love the most.
And that's the thing. And it's Casper especially. So we went down and you could see Sam was petrified, and you literally can't do anything. And when you're sitting in the surgery, but you go in, it'll be okay. But you've got no say, but you just got to be strong. And then when she's going through the bits after the surgery, it's just me and Casper, and then that's when you got the power. But then when she's recovered, it took 6 weeks, and you were having to do everything because Sam literally couldn't do anything twice with Zach and Casper. And it's a tough thing. And we talk about sleep. I struggled with Casper the second time, where he was feeding like every hour and a half. And I remember going to bed at 11 o'clock thinking, right, I've got this. 2 o'clock. And he woke up at 12:15. I couldn't cope. I didn't have a breakdown, but I was just like, I can't do this, Sam. Like, this is great. This was not like it was with Zach, because you forget, but because you've got Zach as well. So like the PTSD and the other thing you mentioned, I can totally see where that is now coming to the forefront of people's conversations, because it is tough, I think.
But I don't think you realise until it's actually just said out loud. Because if you listen to all the little details, you then go, well, you do. You look at it and go,
that was me.
Yeah, it makes sense. It does make sense.
And that's what it is, the magic of bringing it to the forefront. So I don't think you tend to think about it. You just lock it away in a little box and crack on and get on with it, as you do as a dad.
Yeah.
And becomes compartmentalised. It stays to the back of your mind, and you probably don't unlock it till sometimes years later, which is, by that point, it's already done its damage. So, got on enough fact for you. Number of men. I'm full of facts. I told you, Statman Dave. I've got 2 more for you for the rest of this. So, the number of men who become depressed in the first year after becoming a dad is double that of the general population. And of that 25%, around 10 to 12% actually have official diagnosis of depression. So, a quarter of dads will be more susceptible to the general population to mental health issues, and then half of that will get an official diagnosis later down the line of having depression. And then second one I want to lay on you is the peak time for postnatal depression in men is the first 3 to 6 months after birth. So after talking to some guys in my group before, they said the first year was really difficult for the fact of baby hasn't developed personality, and for the dad it's harder to connect with a baby because we didn't grow the baby on the bellies. The wife did, the partner did. So naturally, they have that biological connection. Maternally, they have it. Whereas dads, they don't have that physical biological connection. So therefore, they're latching on to what they usually do, which is personalities and little traits and quips that they do. And that first year, it takes a while to develop those personalities. So that's what makes that time period of those new dads really susceptible to any kind of depression or struggles, because they've got nothing to latch onto as such. They can sit and watch, and sometimes it can even be a little bit of jealousy, because you can sit and watch your partner sit there, be really bonded with your baby, and then you're thinking, well, where's my bond? And you can't, because there's no personality there for you to latch onto. So that first year is critical as a dad to make sure that if you need a support system, you've got it in place and you know where to find them, because without it, you will struggle. And talking eases those, like you've just said, sometimes talking about things, you don't realise you're talking about it, but bringing it to the forefront, the whole idea of the podcast is to be able to then acknowledge it and process it and then move forward with it, because then you know better for the future. Yeah.
Yeah, like that. Going probably back to my experience, I would, for me personally, it was probably the opposite to that. So in terms of me not connecting, it was important that I did connect. So I was obviously doing my best to support my wife at that time, who was obviously struggling, which meant there was probably more time for me, more responsibility for me. I'm guessing some of it will be if the mother is bringing the kid up and obviously feeding her, especially breastfeeding. The man's going out to work every day, getting back a little bit later, and he's just desperate maybe just to hold the baby when it's probably sleep time, and you know, the mum is trying to do things right. Then I can imagine that maybe disconnect and between the mum and the dad can be quite kind of devastating for the dad, because he just wants to maybe bond when he gets back, when he's just come back from work. Yeah. But for me personally, I did a lot because Beck needed that respite. As soon as I got back, I felt guilty leaving to go to work every day. But when I got back, it was my time with baby. So in some ways, like for me personally, it was a really easy year, like in terms of the bonding with the child and having that time to ourselves and that emotional attachment, physical attachment, in terms of just being with her constantly when I got back, because that's the help that probably my wife needed at the same time. So I can imagine it being very different. Yeah. I don't know what it's like for you, Wilco, but I know of some dads that they're almost not allowed to kind of disrupt the patterns that
there's a routine.
Completely understandable. When you've not slept for 6 months, if you've nailed a routine, you ain't changing it.
No.
Not a chance.
No. I think that's the thing, like, obviously you mentioned with Zach, it kind of found myself up with Casper. The first couple of months were really tough. So after I went back to work, it was right, get up, go to work, come back, and that routine. So Sam was getting into a routine, and she was still trying to find herself after her operation and get her. So some people get it, and other people it is difficult, but there's always light at the end of the tunnel. There's always someone. Is it the next door neighbour? Just a conversation at the bins? Is it just when you're walking the dog, like we talked about dogs, is go take the dog for a walk, just get away from it for a little bit, go find yourself. And it's easier said than done, because we're all human and we can just explode and say the wrong things. But I think the point of this podcast is just to say, look, the facts are out there. Nothing's ever perfect, but don't feel that you've just got to be this typical man and just go, it's okay, I'll be fine in 20 years because they've gone to university or moved out. I'll get my own life. Then you need to live as well. You need to be happy within yourself, because if you're not, then that reflects on your kids growing up. Like you keep saying, Shaun, you try to be the best person you could be to reflect on your children, because that's what you got from your mum, from fostering. And that's unbelievable to hear and so inspiring to hear that you're trying to say, look, I'm trying to reflect on them, to go, look, you're never going to be a perfect human being, but you've got to be working on yourself for anyone to look up to you.
Yeah.
So I took a lot from that. So great stats and got us opening up.
That's
there,
what I'm here
Lucas.
for, isn't it? That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, wow.
And obviously we'll make things like, oh, it will be relaxed sometimes, there will be jokes about it, but I think we just need to make sure that we can show people that it's okay to be vulnerable about these things. It's okay to share about these things. If it's in your own safe space or to a group of strangers, appropriately groups strangers, go for it, give it a go. So that's the whole point. That's what we're here for.
Well, I think the important thing to remember is every single individual has a different scenario, has a different life, has a different situation.
Yeah.
That I think the more that kind of the male is open to talking, open to discussing and having conversations that maybe have been a bit taboo. If you look over the last 10 years, things have changed hugely and dramatically
Massively.
for the better.
Yeah.
Now, Mark O'Brien, he's just done a book about the struggles he had. Now, if you'd have met Obi, I don't know if you ever did.
No.
Unbelievably tough character from a young age, like dealt with so much, but it's only now he's probably got the confidence and is in a society where he knows it's okay. It's not a sign of vulnerability to open up and discuss and to chat and say that you struggled at times. And it's important that because we can get left a little bit behind in terms of especially the first 6 months. It's no surprise that some of these stats are about the first 6 months, where it's been predominantly about the connection between the mother and the baby, and we understand that, but we're in a different world where women want to go out and work full time. If I had my perfect job, would be a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
And if my wife earned more money than me, that's what would happen, because she wants to work. There's nothing wrong with flipping it.
No.
She's the bearer of my 3 wonderful daughters, so there's nothing that she can do wrong in my eyes. Occasionally, I'll not tell her that, but in general, anything that she wants to do, she's done so much for me. Just being able to carry Eleanor in the first place, and obviously Blanche and Jeannie, to see what she's gone through personally, and still be a wonderful mother. My side was easy, and I think it's important that you also hear the sides of ease and naturalness. That was for me. So there's no point in hiding that. I feel very privileged because of my upbringing and because of my past experiences. That being a father and being a dad was everything that I was supposed to be, and it was just as I was just as comfortable doing that than I was expecting. So that's one side of the spectrum. Now I'm openly happy to talk about that. I don't think it makes people feel bad or put it on anyone else. But everyone's journey and everyone's life is different. How you deal with these, and that might be getting a bit of respite, getting some space, taking time out. But the important thing is to be present. And I'll go for one more thing. As tough as COVID kind of was in that period, that time that I spent at home was the best time I've had in years, just to be at home with the kids and learn more about them and understand them more and try and develop them in different ways, and just have a bonding that we often forget because we are 9 to 5, and then we want to see our mates that we've not seen for a while, and then you want to go out with your wife, and then you want to go to a football game. I get all that. That's part of your life, and that's part of what makes you happy. But sometimes forget those key moments in your the upbringing of your kids, whether it's just putting them to bed at night, whether it's the walk to school in the morning, whether it's just watching some rubbish on TV that's horrendous to watch through, but you're cuddled up. Those moments are magical, and it's important that we don't forget that. But every single person has a different journey, and I think listening to Wilco, we have a very different kind of life. We do.
Yeah.
We know that, and that's the beauty of listening to someone else that probably has similar struggles and difficulties, and it's wonderful to hear that even though at a younger age Wilco didn't know what he was himself and didn't know his purpose, then all of a sudden a baby comes along and that's now his purpose, and all of a sudden what he was searching for was something he didn't know was there, and it kind of caught you out by surprise.
100%.
And it's no surprise that you wanted a second and you wanted to kind of have that experience again. But the take from me is that everyone has it different. Everyone deals with it in different ways. Everyone should look for support if they need it, whether that's having counselling, whether it's going to see your GP for medical help, whether it's just a conversation with your wife, or let's be honest, a conversation with a mate that you can trust. There's probably nothing better, because they probably have gone through very, very similar things than you have. They probably appreciate kind of where you're coming from. Some of the things that you probably say that is right kind of on the bone as well. They'll get, and they won't judge you for it. But I suppose speaking out is the important thing. So it's wonderful to hear different insights.
I suppose, I think this is what we're going to delve more into as we go on with the podcast. As we dig a bit deeper into different topics, things like that, is that we bring in different people that talk about their perspective on things. I think the only way we become wiser and more knowledgeable and more aware of what's going on and more present is by getting different people's angles and perspectives. And like I say, your perspective is completely different to what Wilco's is and what mine is. And mine's only the experience I've had as being the child of a father, but then yours, Stu's, is being a dad, and me listening to other dads and taking that collectively and just saying objectively, this is what I've heard. So I think as time goes on, we'll find more people that can come in and add that different bit of value to people, that it might be one sentence that clicks with them, but it'll just put things into perspective for them. It will put things into gear and they'll understand, and everything will just fall together. So
I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
That's been great.
Nice.
Thank you for tuning in to the first Dad Space Connect with podcasts. Next time we'll be talking about postnatal depression. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. And for any information regarding Dad Space groups where we will discuss these kind of topics, please visit Derby County Community Trust website. Thank you and see you next time.